guest speaker today is Kelsey Broadway. Kelsey is the daughter of Darren and Carol Root. She graduated from SCHS in 2007 and enlisted in the United States Navy in 2009 after 2 years at K-State. As an aviation ordnance man, she served with the VAC 139 Cougars for the majority of her service and earned the rank of first-class petty officer. After separation, she moved back to Kansas and is currently living with her family in Liebenthal.
Well, I can tell you, 5 years in Navy teach me how to operate a mic, obviously. I would like to thank the NHS and Kelly, actually, for inviting me up here to speak to everybody today. I can say it is a great honor, and hopefully I do a good job. I'm very nervous, and I see all of you out here. I want to start off, and this is probably going to be geared a lot more towards the high school and middle school students here, but life doesn't happen the way you plan it. Let's just say when I graduated in 2007, this was not even in the realm of possibility. I thought I was going to go to K-State, become an architect, and maybe get married down the road, have kids. A few of those things happened, but I definitely veered off plan. 2 years after K-State, I decided to do something different. Didn't really want to come back to Johnson, and thought I'd go out and see the world. So I went down to the recruiting office in Manhattan, Kansas, and talked to a Navy recruiter. I didn't have military in my family, I think since my great-grandpa on my mom's side. So I had no idea what I was getting into. Didn't do any research to begin with. So when I called my parents in March 2009 and said, hey, I went and talked to a Navy recruiter, I'm going to enlist, they were speechless. That came right out of left field. My brother was talking to the Air Force Academy about applying there, but for me, that was, it blindsided him. They came up that next weekend and talked to me, talked to the recruiter, and decided I was going to do it. So I left for boot camp in October of 2009, and that started my 5-year journey. The Navy core values are honor, courage, and commitment, and I tell you, over the next 5 years, those really came into play, along with responsibility, dedication, leadership. As an airman going in, I had some college behind me, so that put me not quite at the bottom of the rank structure, which helped. I didn't like being at the bottom of the totem pole, as I'm sure nobody does. So 2 months of boot camp, and I thank my parents every day I was there for disciplining me as a child, because I saw those kids that came in and thought they were entitled to the world. They suffered. It was not a good experience for them. But having had discipline and responsibility, being raised on a farm, it was definitely a lot easier for me. I was used to taking orders if I had to. I could respect authority. It wasn't nearly as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And then I entered the real Navy, and that's where the real work came in. In March of 2010, I moved up to Oak Harbor, Washington after finishing out my first Guard training. And there I started training to join the EA-6B aircraft task groups. My training up there consisted a lot of working with ordnance, basically bombs and missiles and all that kind of weaponry that we would use on the EA-6B. EA-6B is an electronic attack platform. I'll show you a video later of what it actually looks like because it's not very well known. I mean, everybody knows the Hornets and that kind of thing, but EA-6B were kind of under the radar, which is what we like to be. So in May, we decided, once I got to my squadron, VAQ 139 Cougars, we got Cougars, we left on our first little deployment. It was about 2 months out at sea, and I tell you, the carrier is like nothing you've ever been on. It is 5,000 to 6,000 people crammed onto an aircraft carrier, living basically on top of one another, with recycled water and reconstituted food. So let's just say it was a far cry from a nice warm bed and, I don't know, Freddy's, if anybody's had Freddy's. Nothing out there like that. Working on an aircraft carrier is the most exciting experience and the most terrifying, death-defying experience I've ever had. The flight deck, it is amazing. Best workplace I've ever been. But every day, you're defying death, basically. I mean, those aircraft are going around and they might blow you off the deck. Mom, I'm sorry, I was about blown up twice. And it's terrifying, but once you got used to it, it was exhilarating. Best experience of my life. It was amazing. I'd go back in a heartbeat if I didn't have a little munchkin running around. But going back to honor, courage, and commitment, and leadership. Leadership became a big part. When I joined, I ended up, as like I said, an E3. So I started off higher ranked than about everybody else that goes in. After I finished my first round of training, I managed to score high enough that they gave me an advanced promotion. So about 8 months into my enlistment period, I became an E4 or a third class petty officer. That's almost unheard of. Most people don't become third classes or E4s for a few years. About 8 months after that, I took the exam for E5, and I passed first time up. So now I'm in a supervisory position after about a year in the military, and I've only been in my work center and working at my job for about 2 months. And they put me in a supervisory position, which was terrifying. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never been in a leadership role before, and it was a very fast learning curve. The people I was supervising had been there for about 2 years, and they were all ranked below me now. So I'm trying to learn my job, supervise, and work in a work center, and everybody's having to teach me what to do when it should be the other way around. So we went through a deployment like this. It was about 2 months into deployment, a 7-8 month deployment, that I made E5. And for that entire deployment, I was a supervisor, which was interesting. And I will tell you another thing about being in the military, the support system at home is what gets you through. If anybody's been deployed, which I'm sure you all have, the support system at home is vital. When you're out at sea for about 3 months, no land, no port visits, phone calls, maybe once, you get a few emails here and there. Facebook's non-existent, the internet doesn't work out there. But when mail day comes, about once every 3 or 4 weeks maybe, piles of mail, just piles. It is the best day. It's like Christmas in the middle of May, because you get packages from your parents. So if any of you ever send a care package out there, know it's appreciated. If you send it overseas, know it's appreciated. It's a little slice of home that they don't have otherwise. Going back through deployment, when we got back, we ended up transitioning to a Neo aircraft. So it was learning all over again. You never stop learning in life. You have to be adaptable to whatever it throws at you. I had to adapt to being a supervisor before I was ready. I had to adapt to a new aircraft. I had to adapt to a whole way of life, which my fault I enlisted, but again, best experience I ever had. We got back from deployment, and this would be fall of 2011. We transitioned, and that took us about a year to get ready for the new aircraft. And after we were done with that, we're now on the EA-18G, which is an electronic attack version of Hornet. The electronic attack versions are basically the same aircraft as the fighter attack, except instead of a whole bunch of fun ordnance plays like bombs and missiles, we only get a few of those, and we jam radar. So when we're overseas, flying off the carrier, none of the fighters go off without at least one electronic aircraft, because we jam all the ground radar that tries to detect it. They won't fly without at least one electronic aircraft. Our jobs are very important out there, and it was a great responsibility to make sure we had at least one operational aircraft. The original aircraft were working the A6Bs. Most of them were about 40 to 50 years old, so finding parts for those was absolutely ridiculous. You were either salvaging them off an aircraft that was in the junkyard, or you had to wait 2 months to get one out at sea. Or there was a time, baling wire and just random wires you take the panel off and be like, I wonder if that is actually supposed to be there. But you learn a lot of things about how people can be inventive with their tools. Dad. But going back to after we transitioned, it was a whole shiny new toy. Learning an entirely different aircraft. Nothing was the same. So we learned that, and went through all of our testing and made sure that we all passed every test and we were ready for flight. About 2 months after that, I found out I was pregnant, which is not necessarily a great thing for a woman in the military. We don't for that. So I told my command, I was married at this point, but I told my command, and they transferred me over to shore duty. So I went to work for the CO and XO of the base up there at NAS Whidbey Island. So again, being adaptable, and as soon as I got there, I was placed in another leadership role, completely different. So leadership and adaptability, they definitely go hand in hand. It's always a learning experience no matter what you're doing, even if you never joined the military. That leadership and adaptability, along with the commitment to make yourself better, to always do the best you can, it will take you very far in life. I guess I have a few pictures.